Yo, what is up everybody, it's Jetagate here and welcome back to another Naruto reaction video here today. And today we got yet another video by the GOAT 6, and as you can tell by the title, this is Kakashi versus Jiraiya. So folks, I think this is a quite commonly debated topic within the Naruto fandom. But when looking at this matchup objectively, right, versions of these respective characters most definitely matter, right? DMS Kakashi probably beats anything Jiraiya has to offer. I think we can all agree on that, right? However, early Naruto Kakashi most likely loses to Jiraiya, right? Because if we remember correctly, he was very, very intimidated by Orochimaru. While on the other hand, Jiraiya battled Orochimaru drugged. While Orochimaru did have, I believe, no arms, Jiraiya fought him drugged. And yes, he had Tsunade's help. But the point is, he was not intimidated by Orochimaru, implying that he believes that he is at least relative to Orochimaru. So from that, you can transitively imply, well, Jiraiya probably scaled above Kakashi. Later on, it does get more contentious, right? When Kakashi gets a Mangekyo Sharingan, in the War Arc, when he's spamming Kamui and Raikiri and things of that nature, maybe it's a different story. But I'm very intrigued to see what Six has to say about this matchup. But before we begin, any less really appreciate it, hit that like button, turn on bell notification to stay updated with yours truly. And if you're new and you enjoy, man, and you mess with the kid, make sure to hit that sub button, because once you do, become part of the family forever. But let's not waste any more time, screen. See what Six has to say today.
Hello everyone, me and Striker are gonna talk about Kakashi versus Jiraiya, obviously like the title of thumbnail says. We were just like literally just chilling and calling, we are just like, let's just spitball a video about this shit, because I mean, this isn't one that a lot of people talk about, right? Like, you don't see many people talk about Jiraiya versus Kakashi unless they're like comparing them in the Pain arc or something like that.
Right. I agree with that.
Even though there's a good thematic push or metric to compare the two. They're both Naruto's mentors. Naruto has two different narratives regarding surpassing the both of them. So there's definitely like a big thematic emphasis you can use to compare the characters in a battle.
Yeah. Good so point. We're not going to talk about just Pain arc versus Pain arc. That'd be kind of boring, right? Like they're both not.
Yeah, there's more for Naruto than the Pain arc, yeah.
And they both just get slapped by Pain, right?
Correct.
So we're gonna go over all of it, like standard versus battle format. You've seen everybody do it, right? Like we're gonna start at part 1, and we're gonna go all the way up to the end of Shippuden. Maybe we'll do like Kashi and Koji versus like Kakashi at the in Boruto, like at the
Interesting.
end. But that's neither here nor there. So if we just get right into part 1, right? Obviously there's a few things that need to be addressed so we can even have this conversation. So the data book says Kakashi is the strongest ninja in Konoha. Me and Striker have our own contentions with this statement, because there's just many problems wrong with it, or there's many things wrong with it whenever you interpret it to mean like Kakashi is stronger than Hiruzen. Yeah. That's like the main issue. So Kakashi being above all the other Jonin is fine, right? Like that's perfectly okay. He can be like a little bit stronger than Guy. He's like stronger than Asuma, Kurenai.
I want to make a point just from this indication, right, with what Six pointed out. And the point is, you shouldn't automatically revere every statement in data books or even in manga panels, right? Because you can interpret them differently. They're not always as black and white as you may think they are, etc. Right? If you're in a debate setting, right, and you're debating for one side, of course you got to revere the statement for the sake of the debate. But when you're, just on your merry way, just learning more about characters, objectively speaking, don't revere every single statement immediately. Look at the context, right? Look at what it's saying. Does it make sense from the naked eye test, etc.? Don't automatically revere statements. A lot of people like to do that, and a lot of people do it in a illegitimate way to try and win and give this really outlandish claim. It happens all the time. But the point is, don't automatically revere statements, because you got statements such as this you shouldn't automatically revere. He obviously is not stronger than Hiruzen, right? But that's just something I want to bring up. Let's continue.
Go all those people, that's whatever. But when you say Kakashi's stronger than Hiruzen, then things get a little bit screwy, right? Because then you have to get into like, okay, how are we going to define stronger or strongest ninja in the village? What is it in terms of if he's stronger than him, and like, is he faster? Does he just hit harder? because
Does he have more techniques and stuff?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Which obviously it can't be he has more techniques, because Hiruzen knows all of them.
Yeah.
Every technique in Konoha, at least according to the data books and like some lore that Orochimaru gives him.
The professor.
Yeah, the professor who knows all jutsu. He knows the 8 gates, the mind transfer. He knows everything.
Yep, he knows how to become the Jinchuriki and everything. Kill Beast Ball, all of that.
It can't be in terms of like who fears who, right? Because we know that Kakashi gets immensely scared of Orochimaru to the point where the only thing Kakashi can do when he runs into Orochimaru is literally just envision his head being cut off and like rolling away. And then we even get like some confirmation later that I'll get into that as we go on. But obviously when Hiruzen runs into Orochimaru, he's not envisioning his head getting cut off, and he can actually engage with him. And you can even imply that Kakashi's like extremely scared against Orochimaru, because he starts charging up a Raikiri before he even lifts up his like headband to reveal his Sharingan. Right, like he's like acting preemptively. He's not fighting how he should be.
Yeah, the infamous Chidori that can cut through anything. He's getting like scared to like this is probably the most scared we've ever seen Kakashi in the series. So he's definitely Kakashi in the data book is also just stated capable of seeing your hidden potential as well. So it's not like, I don't know, it's like an edgy debater might be like, oh, Kakashi was just getting mind hacks because of killing intent like Sasuke did. But no, Kakashi can see power. The Chidori can cut through anything apparently, and he's still getting fear hacks this badly. And also, it's interesting to note that in regards to Kakashi getting possibly fear hacks by Orochimaru's killing intent, because it's actually stated in the fan book that Kakashi retrained his body. He did the rock climbing training in order to gain more power, because after he saw Kabuto and Orochimaru, he was like, oh, I need more power, gotta train. And as we all know, Kabuto in part 1, in basically every data book description, any random like magazine statement, anything like any supporting material for the anime, all say that he rivals Kakashi. And
the whole thing about it is just like Orochimaru has this Kakashi level spy on his side. That's just like infiltrating the leaf in these other villages to like gain this upper hand. That's why Kakashi needs to train on top of the threat of Orochimaru. So it's really just like there's nothing implying that Kakashi is actually stronger than these people. It's just like a misinterpretation of a scan. Like even if you want to take like the Raikiri thing super serious, right? Like super literal, like Kakashi can cut through anything with his Raikiri. It would literally just mean like Hiruzen and Orochimaru and them are so fast that they could just like blitz Kakashi and cut his head off like he envisioned.
Something like that.
Right. And then obviously something like that is super relevant to Jiraiya, because the data books say that Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Hiruzen and Tsunade, well, not really Tsunade like later on in her life, but and Tsunade like in her prime, they're all like around the same level, right? So if they're all around the same level and Kakashi's scared of one of them and he needs to train to beat one of them, and he's like, you know, weaker, or not weaker, but he's like the same level as Orochimaru's like underling, obviously he shouldn't be as strong as Jiraiya. There's even other things like the Hokage is supposed to be the strongest one in the village. We get that statement from Iruka, and then when Hiruzen dies, the next person up to be Hokage is
Asani.
Yeah, and Jiraiya knows of Kakashi's power, right? That's why he leaves Naruto in his hands. He thinks he's capable, blah, blah, blah. He knows of Kakashi's power, yet he still thinks like after that, oh, well, why don't we get Tsunade? He's
right,
like,
that's
oh,
a great point.
Let's get Kakashi. He's right down the street. So, I mean, it's really just implied like at this point in the series that Kakashi's just not at that level, not at Sani level.
And I think the icing on the cake for this is that Orochimaru sort of like opens the door for like, oh, Kabuto, if you want to be trainee, like you can't really do anything because he's Kakashi level.
Keep this in mind as well, right? Jiraiya has the type of character, well, he doesn't want to exert much effort into the things that he does, right? Clearly. He likes chilling, he likes staring at women, etc. So the fact that he had to go out of his way and go search for Tsunade instead of going to Kakashi and saying, hey man, you should be the Hokage, not me, implies he doesn't think Kakashi's on that level. He definitely thinks Tsunade is superior to Kakashi, or he would have not gone out of his way to go and search for her in hopes that she would become Hokage of the Leaf. That's a clear as day narrative implication that can be made, right? Jiraiya had to go all the way out there and search for Tsunade through all this hassle where if Kakashi was relative, he simply would have just went up to Kakashi in the leaf and not had to go on that long and rigorous journey of searching for Tsunade. Simple as that. That clearly implies the scaling between these characters. Tsunade is above Kakashi at this point. Jiraiya is relative or above Tsunade, who's relative or below Orochimaru. Simple as that. I think that's a good narrative implication that can be made. Let's continue.
Right, which I feel like ultimately cements this idea that the Sannin are way above Kakashi in the sense that Orochimaru, the big bad villain, sees Kakashi level as a sort of meme.
So the thing about it is Kabuto's thinking about that statement again, even while Orochimaru is like super weakened. So you can also imply that Kabuto doesn't even think he can beat weakened Orochimaru and with his like Kakashi level power, and he's got like the chakra pills on top of that like amp you, they let you fight for days, give you like crazy stamina and all that, and he still didn't think he'd taken on Orochimaru. So I mean, I think it's pretty clear from that in part one that Kakashi just cannot beat Jiraiya, right?
Yeah, I feel like everyone
agree.
generally should agree with that.
Yeah, it's like the big three narrative, like the big three Sannin, and then there's just like Jonin and Kakashi, right? It's just like, you know, Jiraiya is just stronger at this point. So we get into part two. Now I know people hate data book stats. I hate data book stats for sure. I think they're individualistic.
Fair enough.
But that works with this argument. So if you look at data book 2 and data book 3, from the end of part 1 to volume 43, Kakashi did not get stronger at all. His data book stats literally did not change at all. So if they're individualistic, it should apply just fine, right? Like obviously if I was talking about like Kakashi stats versus guys, I wouldn't compare them this way, because if you compare them that way, you get conclusions like Kid Neji is faster than Hiruzen, which, I mean, come on now.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Kid Neji just got blitzed by he got blitzed by Kakashi, that we just talked about as weaker than Hiruzen. Obviously just not the case.
Recognize that in the third data book specifically like references the stats, and it's called the Shinobi progress chart, where they show the stats from the previous data books and show how they've grown and how they are as they stand. They even talk about how they can change at any moment, basically, because people are always going stronger. So like the data book itself is specifically presenting this idea that the stats like at least like are valid if you interpret them individually.
With Kakashi not getting stronger,
right,
I mean, you can sort of interpret from there that stats wise, the battle does not change. Like Kakashi and Jiraiya, like Jiraiya is still going to be beating up Kakashi. Now, where it does change is Kakashi has probably gotten smarter, because we know Kakashi, in between the two data books, he's completed like a few more S-rank missions. Obviously, he knows Kamui now, so he's a bit more experienced. He definitely has more stamina, right? Because in part 1, he said he used 4 Raikuris a day, and then in part 2, he uses 6 on Kakuzu, and he's not fatigued at all. And I'm pretty sure he uses more jutsu than just the Raikuri, so we definitely know he got more stamina, but stamina is not a stat in the data book, right? So it's not like that could have been upped or anything. With Kakashi getting more stamina, maybe he can, like, I don't know, dance around Jiraiya a little bit more, and like, I don't know, maybe try to figure out like a weakness in him or something like that.
It's really weird because part 2 presents to us a lot more evidence in favor of Jiraiya, at least early on, because we have the infamous Rasen Shuriken that killed the painkiller Kakuzu, which, you know, there's a whole narrative built in about how Naruto surpasses Kakashi with the Rasen Shuriken now. And during the pain arc, where they're like, Naruto trained for Sage Mode, Naruto doesn't agree to do Sage Mode until he hears that he can surpass Jiraiya with, which would imply that he doesn't think he's stronger than Jiraiya now, and he's only seen base Jiraiya. So
a pretty linear,
like, they're telling him about Sage Mode at that moment, so he obviously hasn't seen Jiraiya do it at all. Like, it's not like Jiraiya is training Naruto and he's like, all right, look at this, and he just goes Sage Mode and starts like beating him down. Obviously Sage Jiraiya would destroy base Naruto.
Of course. He also doesn't Paw is, and you know, Jiraiya sort of needs Paw to do Sage Mode. So
yeah, Naruto hasn't seen Sage Mode. He's weaker than base Jiraiya, and therefore Kakashi is as well. So it's like, okay, even if you don't want to think, or even if you don't want to agree that Kakashi is weaker than Rasen Shuriken Naruto, you at least have to agree that they're somewhat comparable, because Kakashi, I mean, he literally says that. He says like, you're like approaching my level, so they're like somewhat comparable. He also like beats Kakuzu, which Kakashi couldn't do, even though it was like a weaker Kakuzu, right? Obviously like Kakashi fought Kakuzu with all 5 of his hearts, but it's less like Naruto killed how many, 3 hearts of Kakuzu at the same time, or is it
if you include like his regular body's heart, then that was 3.
So Naruto's just at Kakashi's level, or a little bit stronger, maybe even a little bit weaker, doesn't matter, still weaker than base Jiraiya. So Jiraiya is probably still taking it here. The main thing we could see about Kakashi winning this is maybe if he were to like get a Raikiri off, because Jiraiya, he's not all like a brute force fighter. It's not like he's gonna run up to Kakashi, speed blitz him, and take him out with a Rasengan. So maybe
he's a bit
like,
more tactical, and it's not like, and he's nothing like Tsunade, who we can just directly say, oh, she does a big punch, her durability is that powerful. Right? He likes to use a lot of jutsus to be powerful.
Yeah.
Right.
So like I said earlier, where Kakashi maybe got like a little bit smarter, a little bit more stamina, maybe he could like dance around Jiraiya a little bit and then get him into a spot where he can actually hit him with the Kamui. But that's kind of like it's valid, right? Like I could see Kakashi doing something like that, but it's kind of like, you know, putting your controller in his ass, right? Like,
yeah. If you do that for Kakashi, you should do the same for Jiraiya. And Jiraiya just has more options. A mud swamp thing that I don't think Kakashi's like, we don't know if Kakashi's ever dealt with anything like that. He can like seal you into other dimensions with his toes, apparently, if you use the data book. So like, and this is before Kakashi can even use Kamui on himself. So he's definitely not getting out of that
mode. And then he has Sage mode. There's Frog Song, right? Frog Song like take out pain. Obviously that shit's gonna like destroy Kakashi. So Jiraiya just has so many ways around Kakashi. Like even comparing their performances against Pain, like Pain's clearly just not taking Kakashi seriously. He's just dicking on him, right? Like
I agree.
Pain, he's just beating Kakashi up.
He was toying with him.
Does like scare Pain enough to where Pain has like thinking in his head like, oh, just to be
call him a
safe,
nuisance.
I'm not
A
gonna
nuisance.
get near this guy. But it's
Just
just
take
like,
that into
Kakashi's
perspective.
crazy, tricky, and all that.
Yeah, it's just like a cautious thing, because he did. You can technically say he did the same with Jiraiya as well.
Yeah,
where he didn't like immediately use all the paths and like kept them hidden until after his jutsu was done. And you know, Kakashi copied 1,000 techniques specifically. It would make sense to not like risk anything, because Pain doesn't know what jutsu Kakashi might pull out, so it makes sense.
yeah. So just to like wrap up on this part, at Pain arc at like beginning of Shippuden, it's really just like, okay, Kakashi may be able to get a W, but like maybe 7-8 times out of 10 is going to Jiraiya, right?
Agreed.
So then
It's very
if we move
unlikely
on
that
to
he
the
defeats
war arc,
Jiraiya.
now we get like maybe Kakashi's like he's up there, right? So just to like kind of dunk on him again, I guess for the last time of the video. Not that I like dunking on Kakashi, I love Kakashi, but him fighting Obito is just nothing. Like it's pretty clear Obito's holding back. So
I
like,
agree
aside
completely.
from Obito not using his MS, obviously he's not going to be slipping through things because they're literally in Kamui, but he doesn't have his MS on, and we know that your MS makes you faster and stronger. And I'll just bring up like one example. So in the war arc, we see base Naruto and base Sasuke fighting alongside each other after Sasuke comes back, so he's gonna be Hokage, all that. And then Naruto turns on KCM, Sasuke turns on EMS. We know KCM makes you much faster, and Sasuke is still relative to the like master KCM Naruto. So we know the MS makes you faster. Obito's not using his MS on Kakashi, as well as the fact that he's literally trying to let Kakashi like stab his heart out. So Kakashi beating on Obito, not that impressive.
Yeah, and like Kakashi's only real feat, so like without any Naruto amps, is fighting the Edo Jinchuriki, who I'm sure a lot of people might agree, me and Six do, are characters that are weaker than Part 1 Hiruzen. So you know how that goes.
They may have like some speed on them because of like some beast stuff, but they're definitely like weaker than Part 1 Hiruzen. So maybe you could say like Kakashi can like, since he can react to them obviously on his with his 3-tomo, that this time he could actually get Jiraiya with the Kamui, and it's a lot more probable this time. Or maybe he could like slam a Raikiri into his chest or something like that. Now later in the war, it's just blatant Kakashi slaps him, because then we get Kakashi and Casey and Minato. After Kakashi gets like his resolve back, he gets patched up in like the Kamui dimension and all that. Kakashi and Casey and Minato, when they're fighting against Zetsu, they're relative. Literally, they like rush at Zetsu at the same time, and they're just relative. So I mean, from there, it's just like, come on now. Jiraiya thinks he pales in comparison to just base Minato. So at that point, Kakashi just like, you know, Raikiri to the chest, mud wall, some shit. He's just killing Jiraiya. And then it just gets worse from there. Like DMS Kakashi, like what is Jiraiya doing? What is Jiraiya doing to DMS
I'll tell you what
Kakashi?
he's going to do, Six. So in the third data book, it stated that Jiraiya has the fastest Sage mode attack, meaning he's faster than Sage 6 past Naruto. Meaning he would blitz DMS Kakashi.
So you know, Striker, actually in the anime, it is stated that Jiraiya says Naruto would not surpass him in 100 years. So this is actually consistent. Like Jiraiya says to Urashiki, even celestial beings cannot beat Sannin.
And that was obviously a joke for those who might not catch on. that statement covers up to the 43rd volume, as Six mentioned way earlier in the video.
Yeah.
And Sage Naruto in the Pain arc doesn't even exist in context of that data book. So
yeah, and we all know Sage Naruto has surpassed Jiraiya. That much
Clearly.
is stated. Yeah.
Clearly.
So Koji versus Boruto Kakashi, that fight kind of happened, right? Koji kind of implies like Kakashi's a risk to his life or whatever, so he just like dips out of there. Obviously, you know, go check out Striker's TikTok.
yes, sir.
Subscribe to me. If you want to say anything before we go.
Yeah, support Six. He needs all that help he can get.
yeah. Anyway, have a nice day.
Great video, guys. All right, there you guys have it. I'm gonna give you my 2 cents on this matchup, right? So, part 1, I completely agree with them, right? It's just blatantly clear that Jiraiya is superior to Kakashi. Kakashi is relative to Kabuto, who's Orochimaru's bitch, to be frank. So, there's no way he's messing with someone of Jiraiya's caliber. That's just clear as day. Part 2, I agree. If you go by the data book, it clearly illuminates that Kakashi has not really improved as far as his fighting skill from the end of Naruto to part 2 of Naruto Shippuden. So, it's highly likely that Jiraiya would most likely defeat him. Pain arc, it's a little bit different, right? However, Pain really didn't take Kakashi seriously. A lot of people like to say, Kakashi did great against Pain, right? He did great against him. Pain literally called him a nuisance. He said, all right, I guess I'll take care of him. I mean, I guess he's kind of annoying. He might be a problem to me later, so I'll kill him. That clearly illuminates the fact that Pain really didn't think much of Kakashi as far as in comparison to him. He did respect him. He's like, wow, you are the copy ninja. It's an honor, but I am better than you. I am a god compared to you. That's basically the impression he was giving off the entire time. He was toying with him. I mean, for fuck's sake, the way he killed him, he literally just flicked a nail at him, or thought he killed him. Flicked a nail at him. That's all he did. He didn't try to go up to him and use some immaculately powerful ability to kill him. He just flicked a little nail at him. He's like, this is all I need. Goodbye. That's it. That's all he felt like he had to do against Kakashi, which shows how much he thinks of him as a shinobi. Right? Not to disrespect Kakashi, but that's just the way it is. That's the way it is. He didn't think much of him. Now, if you want to be pedantic, when he fought Jiraiya, you know, there's a couple pains involved. At the end, they all jumped him and stabbed him, right? So he obviously took Jiraiya a little bit more seriously, I think you could safely say. He didn't simply just flick a nail at him and kill him, all right? The point is, just the way they were defeated implies who Pain took more seriously, right? Jiraiya was his sensei. Jiraiya was a Sanin, and Pain knew that. He's like, this guy is a threat, to some extent, at least more so than Kakashi. So I'm going to put a little bit more effort into defeating him. And he did. And he beat him, he killed him. Right? And Jiraiya just seems to be superior at this point in time. Right? That interaction implies the scaling between Kakashi and Jiraiya with Pain. And there isn't really anything to imply that Kakashi has surpassed the level of a Sanin, right? And they made a good point with the Kakazu interaction, right? Base Naruto with a Rasen Shuriken is blatantly relative to Kakashi. And it's blatantly clear that he was not relative to Jiraiya at that point. He did not pass up Jiraiya until he learned Sage Mode. He was still inferior, and most definitely inferior to Sage Mode Jiraiya. That's a definite. So, it's just very outlandish to claim Pain or Kakashi would even compete with Jiraiya. If Rasen Shuriken Naruto is relative to him, who's blatantly inferior to Jiraiya, it just wouldn't make sense to say, hey, Kakashi would compete with Jiraiya. That wouldn't make any sense. It would not. Right? And now when we go to the war arc, things get very wonky, right? Because we see what Six pointed out. Kakashi moving side by side with Edo, Casey, and Minato. But it is a feat. And from that, we can imply his speed, right? We can imply his speed. He's spamming Kamui like it's Shuriken. He's spamming Raikiri. He's reacting to Jinchuriki's version 2s nonetheless. And there's just a lot to imply that he has upgraded quite a bit. And that at the bare minimum, his speed would be a huge, huge issue for Jiraiya. It would be a huge issue. If he's able to move side by side with KCM Minato, what would Jiraiya have for that? Nothing. Not even Sage Mode would compete. If anything, if Jiraiya is still more powerful, it's very likely that he's inferior when it comes to speed based off these feats. It's just, it is what it is. Some people might not like that, but that's the feats that we get. Right? That's the feats that we get. Minato was already the fastest shinobi on Earth during his time alive. And then on top of that, he has KCM and Kakashi's moving side by side with him after he gets his resolve. Come on. Come on. Right? That's a feat. It is what it is. It's right there in front of you. You can't say, oh, that's bullshit. It happened. So, he has the stamina. Ridiculous stamina, I might add. He knows how to control the Kamui now to a much better extent. He could spam it. He could spam Raikuri. He has that kind of speed. Jiraiya's going to have a huge problem. You could Kamui Jiraiya. He probably has the speed to do so. He could probably stab Jiraiya through the heart the way he did Obito. He has the speed to do so. It really is that simple, unfortunately, right? And I think Sick did a great job at scaling these characters at each respective point in time. But when it comes to Koji versus Kakashi, we'll never know, right? They never really had a scuffle. There isn't many feats on Kakashi in the first place within Boruto. It is stated within a specific novel that he is now significantly stronger than he was in the war arc. Put that into perspective. Koji did evade and did not engage in battle with Kakashi. It's implied that he respects him, which implies that there is a good possibility that they are relative. There's a good possibility. If he has to evade and take off, hey man, maybe he is a threat to Koji. Then again, some people might counter and say, well, he's only doing that so the whole Leaf Vein doesn't come on him and attack him, or he was more focused on the mission, or whatever the case may be. But there's a good possibility that he evaded because Kakashi is formidable. So take that as you will. Again, there's no way to really determine who would win that one. It's quite impossible to determine because we don't have a lot of feats, statements, etc. to go off of for that specific matchup. But there you guys have it, folks. It was a good video by Six. He did a good job, like I said. Kakashi loses in most cases. Once you get War Arc and beyond, it becomes more contentious, and then you could say, hey, Kakashi would probably win in these situations. But let me know your thoughts. Who do you think wins between Kakashi and Jiraiya in those respective versions? I'm always interested to hear your thoughts. If you have any recommendations, also let me know in the comments. But that's going to wrap it up, folks, and I'll catch you in the next video. This is Jiraiya signing out. Peace.